everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So recently, I made a video, like yesterday, talking about kind of like my fan clan that I have, and I just kind of decided I should probably go into more depth about it and talk about it more. So, I decided to make this video, and it will be me drawing the apprentices and their mentors in my clan because they're mainly the main characters. Really are like the protagonists, I guess. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy, and I probably will be making more content like this in the future. So first of all, I decided to draw Ice Star and Hawkpaw. So Ice Star is the leader of Thornclan, which is my main character clan. I don't know, it's like Thunder Clan, but I'm so sorry, like kind of like a snuffy nose. But anyways, so Ice Star, a little bit info about her is she's like a new leader. She quite young compared to the other leaders. I think the other leaders are like over 10 years old, and Ice Star in cat years would probably be like 5 or 4, but she's the current leader of Thornclan, and she's a Siamese cat. I know like in Warrior Cat universe they never say like the breeds of the cats. It's just like up for you to interpret, but I always make characters with like breeds in mind. So I guess for like her backstory, her parents are Snowclaw and Smoketail, and Snowclaw is from Thornclan, but Smoketail is from Beetle Clan, which is another clan that I have. She has 2 litter mates, which is Riverheart and Stormcat. We'll get into Stormcat a little bit later. And then she has 3 older siblings, which is Pinefrost, Frostheart, and Berryshine. But Berryshine lives in Beetle Clan, so she's not like terribly important. Like, she's important, but anyways. So a little bit of info about her. Like I said earlier, she has 3 older siblings. So Smoketail and Snowclaw had a first litter of kids, and then they had Ice Star and her siblings. So unfortunately, as you can kind of tell, Stormcat did die. So there was a flood that was like, it's kind of like a main event, I would say, like in the timeline, and a bunch of cats died, and Stormcat did end up drowning, unfortunately. But because of that, I feel like both Ice Kit and River Kit kind of became like really disjointed and separated from each other. Like from each other in the clan, they're both very introverted, even as like grown warriors. I feel like Ice Star a little bit less because she's the clan leader, but Riverheart definitely. Ice Star was mentored by Vine Whisker, who was the deputy at the time. And the leader before Ice Star was Creek Star, who is actually her uncle. It's a fun fact. But anyways, she has a lot of resentment for Snowclaw and Smoketail. She doesn't really much like Beetle Clan. Beetle Clan, Thornclan have like beef with each other historically, so it was kind of a really bad idea for Smoketail and Snowclaw to have kids. It's not against the Warrior Cat code in my universe if one of them just like chooses a clan to live in, but Smoketail was not allowed to come live in Thornclan because they had beef. So one thing that majorly impacted Ice Star's life, I would say, was the fact that after she was apprenticed, Snowclaw decided to go live in Beetleclan just because she felt like she had like more prospects there, and I mean her life was really hard, so she had her own reasons. But Ice Star like vowed, she's like, I hate my mom, I hate my dad. She's like, I hate everyone. So she definitely is a really complex character, I would feel. She holds a lot of resentment for her family, but she also leans on them a lot for support, especially her brothers, Frostheart and Pinefrost. They helped her a lot to get to where she is now. Which, speaking of, the reason how she became leader is because Vine Whisker retired, and Creekstar was like, oh, okay, I'll make Ice Storm, what's her word cat name? I'll make Ice Storm deputy. And Creekstar ended up getting murdered. He got murdered. Along with that, Snowclaw and Smoketail also got murdered. And it's a kind of like a big mystery. I won't spoil anything, but it's like a big mystery because no one knows why or how it happened. And you know, it majorly impacted the clans. So Ice Star became a leader at a very young age. I feel like when this story takes place, she's probably been a leader for like 2 years or a year at this point. She made Pinefrost her deputy. Him and her have they have like a rocky relationship, but it's not like terrible. I feel like she leans on him more than anyone else in the clan, just because he's pretty smart, and he is like a couple of years older than her, which we'll get into Pinefrost more later. But anyways, let's talk about Hawkpaw, because we just had Ice Star take up the whole thing. Let's talk about them both. But Hawkpaw was actually a kitty pet. He is an American bobtail, and his mom, Pip. Pip is a show cat. I think I have like 3 show cats in this universe, or like purebreds. But Pip is also an American bobtail, and she had Hawkpaw, which his kitty pet name was Binks. Like all Hocus Pocus, but he didn't really like feel like he fit in growing up with his siblings and also like his family in general, just because they're very much like pristine, I guess you could say. They didn't like going outside, and you know, they're like, this is your life, Binks, you gotta like be a show cat and be pretty and whatever. And he didn't like that very much. He liked exploring, he liked hunting. Unfortunately, that's what led to his, or I guess it was fortunately, that's what led to his like kickstart in life, because he was probably like apprentice age, probably like around like 6 months old, and he was, you know, trudging through the little forest, and he got attacked by a hawk. Like, this is what his name is based off of. But so he was attacked by a hawk, and Amberpaw and Sweetpaw found him in Thornclan territory, and he was like half dead. And they're like, oh, guess we gotta take him back to Thornclan now. So they took him back, and the whole they, you know, doctored him up. I think very quickly on, Ice Star was like, dude, this kid's pretty cool. So she kind of would spend time with him and taught him a lot about the clan, and eventually she offered him to stay there, which of course he said yes. So he earned his warrior cat name of Hawkpaw, and Ice Star decided to mentor him. So he's very much a do-gooder, but he also still has his adventurous side. he doesn't know much about the other clans yet. I think Star doesn't really want to go take him to the gatherings just yet, just because it just kind of looks, they have a lot of issues already, so she doesn't want any other big ideas from any other clans. But he doesn't really get into trouble very much. I feel like he just makes a lot of like social faux pas in the clans. Faux pas. Anyway, he just like kind of messes up, I feel like, because he's still learning. But he means well. He's a very sweet little guy. Making his character, I think I really didn't want to make a Firestar clone, which this whole series is based off like this roleplay I had when I was like 12 years old on Amino, but I didn't want him to be like a Firestar clone. I feel like whenever I made his character, when I first designed it, it very much was like a Firestar clone. But I think he's very complex. I don't think he understands like the rules very much of the clans. He's very much like, he just feels whatever is right in his moral compass, he'll just do it. But yeah, Star and Hawkpot I think make a really good team. Hawkpot is very much like, he'll go talk to anyone, and he loves to make friends. For example, Amberpaw, who we'll get into later, kind of has a lot of resentment towards him. Doesn't really like him for a laundry list of reasons, but he doesn't really care about it. He tries not to let other people's opinions of him affect him, which of course it always will, but I think he knows deep down what his worth is, which, you know, he always will have his problems, but I think he's a cute little guy. Which is not to say that Star and Hawkpaw don't get into don't butt heads, because they definitely do. I think Star definitely doesn't really understand him half the time. Like, she tries to, but I feel like it's just a little bit difficult. But their dynamic is definitely really sweet. I feel like Star sees him a lot as a son, and he like brings her out of her shell a lot. I think he also helps with like her prejudice, I guess I should say, for the other clans, especially with Beetle Clan. But yeah, so this is them. I think it's really cute. So let's talk about the next set of apprentices and mentors, which will be Star's brother Pinefrost, and then Sweetpaw. Sweetpaw's very interesting. Sweetpaw was very much inspired by Hollyleaf, especially when she was an apprentice. This is me like looking for references, but anyways, Sweetpaw was heavily inspired by Hollyleaf. Okay, fun fact about me. Power of Three is like my favorite series, and I love kind of how like the background characters and all the characters have personalities, I guess. So when I now that I am making this, I try really hard to make all the cats have personalities and like dynamics and etc. So Sweetpaw was born to Spiderclaw and Palefoot, and she's very interesting. She was born with a younger sister, Featherkit, but Featherkit ended up passing away due to green cough. So Sweetpaw also grew up alongside Amberpaw, and Amberpaw was like always very spoiled, and Sweetpaw was kind of always keeping him out of trouble, just because he's kind of a naughty little guy, and Sweetpaw is very much like, she has a really big moral compass, I suppose I should say. She's a loyal rare code follower. But yes, I feel like she gets a lot from her dad, Spider-Claw, who we'll talk about later, but she just, I feel like Pinefrost also doesn't really help because he is also very much a follower of that code kind of guy. But let's talk about Pinefrost a little bit more. So Pinefrost was Snowclaw and Smoketail's first litter, and what ended up happening is the clan, or I'll save the exact backstory for later, but the Thornclan and BeetleClan found out that Snowclaw and Smoketail were together, and they were in like an active kind of war or battle, I don't know. But so they're like, bro, you guys suck. So Snowclaw and Smoketail were like, okay, where should I leave? So they ended up running away, I guess, and they went to go live in the mountains next to BeetleClan and Thornclan territory, which is not that far. But so there they had Pinefrost and I used Pine Kit, a Frost Kit, and Berry Kit, and everything was like okay for a while. I mean, others, aside from the fact that they were young and just had kits and whatever. But so what ended up happening is Pine Kit and Frost Kit got sick, and Smoketail's brother Pumpkin Stripe would come visit them because he was the only one who remembered they are, and he was like, listen guys, your kids are too sick, like you gotta come back to the clans. So unfortunately, well I guess it was fortunately, but bittersweet, they decided to go back to Thornclan, and Creekstar, who was the leader at the time, he was Snowclaw's half-brother, and he's like, listen guys, I will let Smoketail stay here for a little bit until the kids are okay, but after that Smoketail just gotta go. And of course Snowclaw was like, you know, she wanted to be with her mate, and it was like really depressing. And growing up and seeing that, Pinefrost was like really affected. I feel like he didn't have as much resentment for his mom and dad as much as Ice Star does, but it was just frustrating seeing how the clans treated their parents just because they're from different clans. So Smoketail ended up getting kicked out, and then he didn't know what to do, so he went back to BeetleClan, and then Elkstar, who's a BeetleClan leader, was like, dude, I want in on these kids. So she went over and was like, the Warrior Cat code says that they have to like join one clan, but Smoketail's in my clan, so I want at least one kid. And Creekstar was like, okay. So he let her choose, and she chose Berry Kit. So that's why she lives over there. But it was really upsetting for Pinefrost to witness as a child. He secretly would go and visit Berry Kit, like Berry Paw, growing up, him and Frostpaw, like on the border and everything. And of course, Snowclaw and Smoketail were still seeing each other. They had a second litter of kids, so of course. But he is a very complex character. I feel like he tries very hard to prove himself just because of his whole past and where he's from. And he's very well respected, but he also is kind of like battle hungry in a sense. He feels like the only way he can prove himself is to just show like how good of a warrior he is, which in his eyes is like fighting and hunting, and he just tries really hard to like expand his skills, I guess. But he means well. He's also he's gay, by the way. He's canonically gay. But anyways, he apprenticed a lot of apprentices. So Sweetpaw is not his first. His first apprentice was actually Palepaw, which is Sweetpaw's mother. And Palepaw's parents ended up also dying in the flood that Storm Kit died in, both her parents. Which, I mean, it's really upsetting, you know, as an apprentice, both your parents die. So Pinefrost tried really hard to be like family to her. And even after she became a warrior, they were still pretty close. And Ice Star gave Palefoot's daughter Sweetpaw to Pinefrost. So Pinefrost is kind of like an uncle type for Sweetpaw. I mean, Palefoot and Pinefrost are both still really close friends. I really like their dynamic. I feel like they're kind of, it's very much like they want to like not feed into each other, but they have a lot of the same ideals, and I feel like those ideals, Sweetpaw's ideals, come a lot from Pinefrost and her father. So I feel like they just agree with each other a lot more than I feel like the average apprentice and mentor would. I feel like they're definitely like, they work together a lot more than the average, you know, apprentice mentorship would be. I feel like that's also just because Sweetpaw, like, she's very much, like I said, she's a rule follower, so I feel like whatever Pinefrost says, she'll just be like, okay. You know, she's not one to question authority, I guess you could say. But Sweetpaw, I feel like she's more of a friend to Hawkpaw than Amberpaw is. I feel like she was the one who said that they should take him back to camp when they first found him. Amberpaw did not really want to. Mainly just because he was like, bro, he's not from here. But Sweetpaw insisted on it just because she felt like she could not live with herself if she knew that some random, like, helpless kitty pet in her eyes died just because they didn't want to take him back to the clan. But she was also, like, really apprehensive to him joining at first. I feel like, not that she didn't agree with it, but she just didn't know how to deal with it, I guess. Teach him, because it was so strange to her, you know? Like, how could any other cat not live this? Like, how could any cat not live life like a warrior? But her and Hawkpaw became pretty close. They both have, like, a big sense of, like, morality. So I feel like they get along for that reason a lot more than you would expect. But, like I said, she did grow up with Amberpaw. Amberpaw and her are, like, the same age. I think Hawkpaw's, like, a little bit older than them. But Amberpaw, I think I'll get into him more later, but she definitely was like a foil to his misadventures, I guess. She's like the angel on your shoulder, and Amberpaw's like the devil on your shoulder. Amberpaw has his own insecurities and issues, and I think Sweetpaw, she definitely has her own issues, but she definitely trusts in her life, or her being, I think, more than Amberpaw does. I think she also knows, like, she thinks if the clan's doing it, then it's probably for the best, which is not always good, but I enjoy her a lot. I haven't like thought too much about her, I guess, in-character voice and stuff like that, but I'm excited to work with it more. She is also one of my favorite designs that I ever did. Like I said, I feel like if I'm remembering right, from like the old days of Amino, she wasn't my character, or she was like a completely different character, because she was one of my friend's characters. But like, to fill that void, because there's always like the 3 apprentices, and of course I didn't have a 3rd apprentice because it was my friend's character, and I haven't talked to them in like 5 years. I just made her up, and I definitely didn't want her to be like the average, like, I guess, she-cat and were-cats. Like, they always, I feel like they always are like, I'm like they have a personality and then they become warriors and they're like, okay, I'm just gonna have babies and forget everything that like I ever did, which is like the opposite of what I wanted. She's also, I feel like she's complex. I feel like she definitely, her moral judgment is good, but I feel like her blind loyalty, especially to the code and to Thornclan, is sometimes gets in the way of like her, just like her sense of judgment sometimes. But yeah, I'm proud of her, like her design and her character. I feel like her dynamic with Pinefrost is definitely interesting. The whole like, they kind of are not both like morally gray, but they definitely like, their morals are heavily dependent on the code, which I think makes for interesting characters. I always thought that was really interesting. I know it's like, I know a lot of people are sometimes like, oh, this character sucks, and this, like, Hollyleaf, you know, Hollyleaf is like super dumb, but I feel like this isn't like a cult mentality, but it's definitely if you've lived that way your whole life and you're surrounded by people who are like, oh, half clan cats and like cats from the outside like suck, and this is the only way of life, and you have religion to back that up, but definitely it's hard to learn anything else, which of course I really enjoy because they can always learn, and I think she definitely did, especially getting to know Hawkpaw, and especially with the, I say plot in quotations because I don't know if I'm gonna write books or what, but the plot of like the first story, she definitely learns a lot from Hawkpaw, and I think also just like life in general. But so yeah, so that's Pinefrost and Sweetpaw. I enjoy them both so much, as you can tell. But anyways, okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of it all, which is Amberpaw and Spiderclaw. I guess not meat and potatoes, but one of my favorite dynamics. Okay, so first of all, it's Spiderclaw and Amberpaw. And Spiderclaw, like I said earlier, is Sweetpaw's father. He's a very interesting character. He was very socially, like, not inept, but he's very reserved. He's very much like, I love my wife kind of guy. And he also is a big code follower. So he kind of instilled that, like, moral into Sweetpaw. And he was given to Amberpaw in hopes that Amberpaw would become, like, a little bit less ruly, because Spiderclaw is so, like strict, I suppose. And that's not working out at all. So Amberpaw is actually Frostheart and Spotted Flower's kid. Not biologically, but they adopted him. And he definitely has a lot of insecurities about that. I feel like especially when he was raised, he wasn't really taught who he actually came from until he was a little bit older. And I think because of that, he just feels like especially being surrounded by people like Sweetpaw and stuff, he feels like he has to make up for being lesser than. Because it's not even like being half clan, you're still a clan cat. He's from Two Leg Place. Sorry, because you use my notifications. But he I feel like was spoiled a lot just because of that fact, especially by Frostheart and Spotted Flower, and also Spotted Flower's mom, like Whisper. I feel like they let him get away with a lot just because they're like, oh, it's kind of like that cliche, or not that cliche, but like people in real life where like their parents kind of let them do whatever they want because they've had a hard life, and they kind of just like use that excuse. But Amberpaw means well. He's not like completely evil. He definitely has his own issues, but you know, he definitely has a lot of issues with Hawkpaw at first, just because it's like he feels like he worked so hard to, you know, be a good member of the clan, and here comes along like Hawkpaw, and he just was attacked by a hawk, and he immediately got accepted and got to, you know, be the leader's apprentice, like adopted son. I feel like he holds a lot of resentment for that, especially, but he still feels like he kind of, I feel like his ego definitely is just because he wants to prove himself. Like, he's definitely masking for his own insecurities. Like, he acts all big and tough, but really he's like really insecure. But so he kind of is a troublemaker. He kind of has the mentality of like, I'll do whatever I want because, you know, I'm Amberpaw. Like it'll work out for me kind of mentality, which is not the worst that can happen, but he's definitely kind of a little jerk. He's very jealous of Hawkpaw. In the end, he learns to somewhat overcome it, but he definitely is very jealous in the beginning. I feel like he unknowingly makes it worse, just because it's like he's the one acting out and Hawkpaw is the one like being cool and awesome, and he's like, man, why doesn't this work out for me? And he's just like being a little shit the whole time. But anyway, Spiderclaw. So Spiderclaw, he's a very interesting guy. So like I said, he was really reserved, and he much didn't really care for anyone. When he grew up and became a warrior, he met Palefoot, or I guess he always knew Palefoot, but he was like, wow, Palefoot's so awesome and so beautiful. And then they had kids, and he was like, wow, this is so awesome and so beautiful. And then Featherkit died, and he was like, oh. He's like, wow, I should become like 10 times more strict and protective over Sweetpox. I'm so scared she'd like get green cough and die. So he's a very protective dad. He's very much like, he's a good father, but sometimes his actions don't really reflect his meaning. But he does not really approve of Amberpaw. He feels like Amberpaw is like the worst influence ever, which is, he kind of resented. Well, he was actually excited to be like his mentor. He's like, wow, I could like change his kid's life around, make him, you know, a good warrior. And Amberpaw is just being like the worst, like so difficult and frustrating. But he definitely tries a lot. I feel like it's all for the best for Amberpaw, him being so strict. But yeah, they definitely have a really funny dynamic. I feel like if I was to ever write anything, their dynamic would be the funniest, or the funnest to write, I suppose. But yeah, so I tried to really reflect their like both like argumentative personalities in this drawing. I really love Amberpaw's expression. That's like my favorite. I feel like I did this all like within like 4 hours straight, and I feel like I definitely, so this is definitely my favorite. But I feel like Amberpaw, this This is definitely probably giving Spider-Claw a really terrible time. And he's trying to deal with it. But anyways. So now that we're coming to an end, I just want to say thank you for watching. I know this will be long and kind of boring, but I always really enjoy people talking about their OCs. So I hope that you enjoy it. But anyways, I will probably make this a habit of posting. Maybe like FanClan Fridays or something. But I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you stick around and learn more about my OCs and tell me your favorite OC that I talked about in the comments. And I'll definitely talk to you guys later. Bye!